I finally figured out why I've been struggling with identity as a Gen Xer. And I generally think that most Gen Xers do struggle with identity. And I would love to hear your comments below. Is that something that you struggle with? I think more generally speaking, because we are sort of that sandwich generation between the boomers and the millennials, who always seem to get all the attention because they're at each other's throat all the time. We are known as, kind of the overlooked generation. I know that for me, because I was in the music industry for about 10 years. And I know that, in that industry, it's very much addicted to youth. So because I was in that industry and because I always wanted to kind of stay relevant and stay on the gig, I really more tried to align myself and almost identify as a millennial in terms of the way that I guess, conducted myself and the way that I tried to work. I may have even been guilty of wearing skinny jeans at some point. But the point of this is that I think Gen Xers, we do genuinely struggle with identity. And I think that's a key piece of insight when we start talking about this retirement crisis, which I want to kind of dig into. An article that I'll leave this in the description below from knowswhy.com about the similarities and differences between generations. So I'm going to walk through their outline of, the characteristics of each generation, each of these three generations. I'll leave Gen Z out of this for now for this comparison. But so number one, baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964. Generation X, which would be my generation, born between 1965 and 1980. And then the millennials would be that generation between 81 and 96. And don't ask me how these are. I guess these are just sort of agreed upon definitions for what the generations are. So baby boomers grew up in the post-World War II era. They witnessed the rise of television and iconic music bands like the Beatles. They tend to value job stability and often stay with a single employer for a really long time. Those days are long gone. And they're known for their strong work ethic and loyalty to traditional values. I agree with all of these points, especially that work ethic piece. I think most of the boomers that I know, people in my family, people that I've known, are really, really good at grinding it out. Like, hey, I hate this job, I hate this career, I hate the company that I work for, but I know that the light at the end of the tunnel is there, and so I'm willing to sort of grind it out. So that rings true for me. Generation X, again, born 65 to 80, referred to as the latchkey generation due to increased divorce rates. So latchkey kids, like our generation, a lot of divorced families, so both parents were working, so after school we had a key to the house and we kind of let ourselves in and, we're kind of on our own. I think a lot of us experienced that. Raised during the Cold War era, they often carry a sense of resilience and adaptability, known for their skepticism and pragmatic approach to life, and they value work-life balance and strive to strike a balance between career and personal life. I definitely agree with all of those. By the way, if you're getting value out of this video, I would love it if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with a fellow Gen Xer that is looking for content like this. It really does train the algorithm to reach more Gen Xers who are looking for some hope in retiring as well. So millennials, born 1981 and 1996, they're known as the digital natives. They emerged alongside the internet and witnessed the rise of smartphones. They're advocates for social causes and sustainability. They embrace technology and social media and value experiences over possessions, and known for their desire for work that aligns with their values. And I definitely agree with those. So I think that all of that is really interesting, just sort of as a baseline. But again, I want to pull on that thread of what each generation's sort of approach or mindset is around financial planning. So baby boomers who experienced economic prosperity may prioritize saving for retirement. Gen X may focus on achieving financial stability amid economic fluctuations. Millennials and Gen Z may prioritize experiences over traditional financial security. Those are all like super general. So the focus of this channel really is talking about, the Gen X retirement crisis, and really more so like what can we do about it. So I tend to categorize this in sort of two categories. I think that there are some externalities that are sort of unique to our generation. And then after that, I want to talk a little bit about some of the internalities or the things that we're sort of responsible for. I was watching a video earlier today. It was talking about GenX and retirement. It's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. So that's going to be kind of the general theme. So the externalities, some of the things that we witnessed as Gen Xers are the hollowing out of the middle class via offshoring and outsourcing. That really started, I think, probably in the late 70s, went through the 80s and really kind of peaked in the 1990s and has really completely changed the orientation of our economy. This is a huge one, and I'm going to talk about this a lot on the channel. Rampant inflation of the currency supply after Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1973. So after that, before that, the dollar was actually redeemable for actual physical gold. After that, the dollar and all other fiat currencies became floating, okay, with nothing backing them but the good faith and credit of the United States government or whatever government was issuing that, what's called fiat currency. Moving on, we're the first generation to have figured it out on our own in terms of retirement because employers moved on from pensions to a self-directed 401k. I think this is a good one to park on for a minute because my parents' generation, they typically stayed in jobs a really long time, like the commentator was talking about a minute ago, and they usually had some kind of pension plan. And so we were that generation that was sort of thrust into this 401k scenario without any real financial education or like, okay, how do I do this? Like, what are the right assets to be in? How much do I need to allocate for retirement? How soon? What does my nest egg need to be? And we'll cover all that here in a minute. So then along those lines, being thrust into that, sort of massive responsibility, we had almost zero financial education. I don't know about you, but I was not taught in school or at home how to manage money, how to balance a checkbook. I did see frugality and sort of thriftiness modeled in my family, but I was never really taught the nuts and bolts about, okay, this is how you do a budget, this is how you manage a bank account and reconcile. And we also didn't have the internet to kind of help us figure all of it out. That hadn't been really invented yet. The next point is that I would say during this time is where middle class attitudes like you'll always have a car payment, you'll always have a mortgage, a credit card debt became ingrained in our culture. They became more cultural beliefs and more culturally accepted. I think in the boomer generation, that was still a generation that was very, very much focused on solvency, really pushed away debt. And it wasn't until I think about the early to mid 70s that credit cards really, really became much more common and acceptable. And I think overall, there are just a lot of these sort of breakneck trends that created kind of a fog for Gen X. So we're kind of, we were kind of thrust into this position like, okay, we don't have any monetary education. We've got, we're in a fiat currency world now. Monetary inflation is a real thing. Debt is being foisted upon us. It's really easy to get it. It's culturally acceptable. Everybody's doing it, right? So I want to pivot now from the externalities to the internalities. And I think every generation is really vulnerable to succumb to these, but I think particularly ours. The idea of our temptations to keep up with the Joneses, or I would say the Kardashians at this point. So we see this all the time. The need to appear wealthy rather than quietly, responsibly building wealth. The overall lack of personal financial acumen. I can't tell you the number of financial coaching clients over the years that we've really had to start from the very beginning, talking about financial organization, cash flow planning, expense tracking, and then moving into savings, debt elimination, and investing. Personally, taking advantage of easy credit, which is basically consuming tomorrow's resources today at great interest, spending more than we earn, not tracking our expenses, not thinking about retirement, and more specifically, these are really, really important questions as we're kind of walking through this. What does my annual income need to be in retirement? Like, what age do I want to retire? And what does my annual income need to be? And how much of a nest egg will I need to have in order to support that annual income? What is that? What is that dollar amount? What is that figure? That's a really, really great place to start. So we as Gen Xers, we've got a lot of catching up to do in a lot of ways. And so as I sort of restart this brand and sort of, kind of pivot to what I'm doing now, my main focus is really to work with Gen Xers on figuring out, okay, where are you in your on your financial journey? If you are interested, I have basically the coaching methodology that I use is I call it OPTO. So it stands for organize, plan, track, and optimize. So financial organization really is, no matter where you are in the process, just sitting down and making a list of all of your sources of income, all of your bills, your expenses and debts. Planning is really cash flow planning or budgeting, and that's where you sit down and you plug that into a zero-based budget. And then keeping track of every single penny that you spend so that you can then reconcile that with the budget. Those three items are the basis. Those are the baseline of everything that we do. And then the last O in OPTO is for optimization. Now, optimization is really going to depend on where you are in the process. So if you are in a posture where you've got a lot of debt and you're using credit cards, and so the very first thing that we want to do is get you like a $3,000 to $5,000 emergency fund. Dave Ramsey recommends $1,000. I just don't think that's enough in this inflationary time. Any amount is good, but we usually try to start with $3,000 to $5,000. Once you've gotten that, obviously we've gotten the building blocks. Once you've gotten that, we're moving into, debt elimination. So there are typically two methodologies that we use for that, depending on the nature of your debt, how high your interest rates are. I prefer the debt snowball, but we also use the debt avalanche with some of our clients. And then the third area is where we go through and we optimize investing. So a big problem for Gen X is that a lot of us are middle class, low middle class, and poverty. So the difference between most of us and the elites is that we don't own any assets. So we've been working our entire lives, on this fiat treadmill. And so one of the things that we do in our retirement, coaching is work through the process of buying assets. So we're talking things like, gold, silver, Bitcoin is a major one as well. So if that's a framework that sounds interesting to you, I have a free guide that I offer just to kind of outline what that is. You can probably do it yourself. Just type OPTO in the comments and I'll send you a link to download that free PDF. So I'm going to have a lot more content like this. I'm looking for, again, if you find this kind of content helpful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with a fellow Gen Xer. Would love to interact with you in the comments. So please let me know your thoughts, questions, comments, smart remarks in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.